Man, it's a beautiful day for me to be on the show once again. And they have been doing well. And obviously, when you have talented young men like this one, it makes some sense. Representing Cascade, of course, hailing from Russia, it is SKillous.
And his opponent in the northwest position, ripping that T-cap, he is Denver.
All right, we can do some predictions real quick for this entire best of 5. We already went over it. All three of us think that these two players are very evenly matched, and I think that's really accurate. I have the feeling we're going to see SKillous obviously build a lot of air units this entire best of 5. I know that he feels very comfortable if you can get a whole bunch of carriers out. Denver doesn't mind the late game. I think he's quite alright with Corruptive Viper. But Denver is also pretty wild, so I won't be surprised to see a couple of Nidus network, like maybe Roach Queen attacks in this entire series. Maybe on the smaller maps, we'll just see him march Queens to the other side of the map. I think it's going to be a pretty wild one, Nick.
Yeah, no, this should end up being a good series. I mean, we get some crazy stuff happening. And as I've said before, I think this is one of the more fun parts about that change that they made with regards to the Void Rays and getting people a bit more Stargate oriented, particularly in PvZ. I mean, I think last week, almost every other carriers or Fleet Beacon in almost every single PvZ I think that I've cast in this tournament actually so far. So it's a very popular move, if not for people opening, which we've seen tons of like Void Ray openings and whatnot, but just those late game carrier transitions. I think got a good couple 40+ minute games, Roddy, out of some of these ones. So
yeah,
it could get wild. Buckle up.
SKillous is no stranger to those. Denver isn't either, but I do think that if Denver can avoid it, he will. Sometimes there is just no other way for a Zerg player to play it rather passively, and then you got a Spore Crawler up, and then you got to get Hive Tech. But I think in the majority of the games, Denver is going to try to end it before we get there. Because there's always that moment, right? Like, okay, Safety Void Ray allows you to go up to 3 bases. You get a good economy. You can get extra Stargates up if that's how you want to play. But then there is that like little tipping point when the first couple carriers are on the way, or let's say one set of carriers is out, but then you're building the second one. Those carriers, they take a little while to be built, and you do often feel a bit vulnerable as a Protoss player. And I know that Denver is good enough to sniff those timings out and then strike when the Protoss army isn't really as powerful yet as you would like it to be.
Yeah, speaking of, there is that Void Ray. So it wasn't like it was changed crazily, but they just made it a bit cheaper, builds a little bit faster, and I think it moves a little bit faster too. And of course, they added that Flux Veins upgrade back into the game. So if you want them to be speedy boys, they can be. These two Adepts coming over. Quick Evo block to keep him away from the drones. And even without speed, Kev, is he about to deny any real damage from this? Yep. That's actually very well done.
Beautiful defense by Denver. I really don't think he could have done anything better there than he actually did. Losing a couple of Zerglings, that's inevitable because the Adepts two-shot them, but he kept all of his drones alive and just had a great army movement all around. These are the little things, but I think that really helps. If you mess up the very first exchange in an entire best of 5, I think it's easy that it starts getting into your head. You're like, oh, I'm playing bad. Like, oh my goodness, like I messed up there. Denver is going to feel good about it. He's like, yeah, I'm on my A game here. That was totally on point. Oh, that was beautiful.
Oh, he baited the Adept.
Yep, that was beautiful. It wasn't a whole position, and he's going to prevent that Pylon from being warped in, but now he's going to at least lose one more probe. Well done, man. Like, nothing of this is game ending, and it's like, oh my god, SKillous is in trouble. But all the little things so far are working out exactly as Denver would like to.
Yeah, and here's the second Stargate finishing. Still building a Void Ray out of the original one. So I guess it's Void Rays all the way down now. Kev, just defend with the Void Rays, transition into carriers. Is that the play? How many Void Rays does SKillous go up to? I guess is maybe a more important question now.
Yeah, I've seen, I believe it was Shadon play on this map, and he went up to a whole bunch, like 6, 7, 8, and then a bunch of shield batteries as well. I'd be so surprised if Denver doesn't Nidus this game. To me, everything about this game screams a Queen Nidus Roach attack, and I think it's going to be very powerful, especially because all the little things are going Denver's way. Just like this, you show up, you get another probe, he got so much value out of basically nothing yet. I love the way that Denver is playing game one.
You know, looking very good, looking very sharp here as that lair. It's going to still be a little bit off of finishing, but if there's one thing that we know, PvZ wise, queens can kind of deal with most early void ray type stuff like this. And, you know, assuming that there's not that crazy amount that we're talking like, you know, 7 or 8, but comes over, he's going to force a cancel on a spore. But the void ray itself doesn't really go toe-to-toe with the queens. You're looking for maybe an exposed overlord, maybe shave an extractor off if you can comfortably do it without losing that void ray. But these lings come in, not only hitting a few of the adepts, but trying to kill the shield battery to increase the surface area available. And they do that, and they pull back as he sees 4 more void rays here. And that's when that Hydralisk Den starts up. So he knows what he's up against. It's going to be that Protoss Air shenanigans that have become so popular these days.
Yeah, what I'm a bit worried about for SKillous in this game as well is, other than the fact that all the tiny things so far didn't go his way, is that I think he's gonna have a hard time containing the creep. That's why I do like the fact that he has his void rays out on the map right now, and he just picked off one of those creep tumors. But if the void rays are not here, this entire map is gonna turn into a creep highway from Denver's natural straight into the 3-base setup of SKillous. And then these queens and hydras are gonna have a very easy time to just march to the other side of the map. You don't even need to Nidus at that point. I am definitely a bit worried. There is the Nidus network, so it's a bit late. He didn't go with the roaches, but he's gonna go for the Queen Hydra Nidus. Yeah, look at the mini-map right now and look at the way that SKillous is spreading out his void rays. SKillous knows. Without even seeing it, he knows.
What about this dark spot in the main? Do you think sending out this changeling is a bit of a mistake in the main? Because there's a spot he doesn't have any vision in above that natural ramp, and the Overseer's just been chilling there. So I think this might be something to consider as well. He might be able to just tunnel straight into the heart of the Protoss base. As I say that, SKillous does go to build a pylon, but if he starts to worm right now, the building pylon doesn't have vision yet.
Oh my goodness, Nate. Wow, that is spot on. But the void ray is going to look for it. SKillous finds the Nidus in his main. That is a golden catch right there. One void is going to be enough to shut this down. And what I also truly love, Nate, is that he's not pulling the other void rays out of position. Look at the minimap. That is a work of Frodo's art. Very well done. But the thing is, Denver doesn't really have to Nidus. He can run all of his Hydras to the other side of the map, and then he can just Nidus near the Hydras, because right now they're pretty powerful. At the same time, though, SKillous is getting a couple of adepts into this natural mineral line. We've got a series on our hand, Nate. I'm feeling it.
Yeah, this is going to get wild. The adepts in that mineral line. 7 drones have been killed. A void ray tries to give a bit of a poke onto that Nidus, but as you said, the Hydralisks went first. They are shepherding that Nidus through, and with the Queen support coming in, it's going to be much more difficult to dislodge this. There are some Templar. Storm is about to finish researching, but he doesn't have the energy for Storms just yet.
This is actually sick. Like, I think SKillous can hold, man. With all those static defenses, I don't even hate feedbacks here. Like, I know Storm and the Hydras is probably the better choice, but I think a couple of feedbacks really wouldn't be the end of the world. Like Storm with these High Templars, warp in new High Templars, feedback, and morph them into Archons. But these Storms are absolutely amazing. I don't really see how Queens can heal this out. There's an overcharged battery as well. SKillous ain't losing a damn unit near that thing. And this is a fantastic defense so far by the Rush.
Oh, he's making these Void Rays look insane, Roddy. Now the Hydras are going to start to shave a few of them off. You do need that Storm or the Charge Lot buffer. Somehow went through 8 batteries worth of energy just about at this point.
He's totally fine. All he needs to do is warp in like 4 or 5 Zealots now. Just warp in like...
Yeah.
We've got gateways, right? We have 8 gateways. If I was SKillous, I would pounce on that army. I wouldn't actually let that army escape. He's probably very happy with that defense. And maybe he's even a bit scared. He's like, that went so good. Like, there's got to be more. He's got to be transitioning behind all of this. Let's not get too carried away, but SKillous is in a marvelous position. Denver has lost over 6,000 resources in this game. SKillous has only lost 3.8k.
Yeah, and that is definitely nice. Now, Denver did secure a 4th behind this. He's going to smack down the 4th of Skillous. No way that he could protect this base. Everything kind of hinges on the Storms for dealing with the Hydras. The Void Rays themselves will never be great in a head-to-head fight. And the Lurker Den coming in. This starts to maybe get a little bit nervous, Kev, because if they are able to use like an entrenched position, the Lurkers with all their upgrades from the Hive, I don't think that the Void Rays are going to be able to just pounce on them like that. It's kind of hard with the range difference between them, and obviously having Queens and Hydras and maybe Spores to support. it makes me want to see that transition that we were talking about into carriers, honestly, if you get enough of them.
Yeah, I actually feel like SKillous doesn't want to go carriers this game for some reason. He's not building a fleet beacon. He's not getting any extra air upgrades, obviously, because he doesn't have the beacon. I think he's going to try to transition into a ground army. I think as long as Denver doesn't have Hive, I don't hate this game for SKillous, but I think the clock is officially ticking at this point because that infestation pit is about to finish up, and I think Denver won't waste a second to fire up that Hive. And the moment that Hive is up, all of these Void Rays, I don't want to say they're useless, but they're definitely not that scary anymore.
Yeah, well, that's especially an important thing to point out as that Hive does start. The Lurkers are a completely different unit when you get them the 2 upgrades that the Hive unlocks. Now we've got Creep being spread into the mineral line of SKillous. A bit of a comical scene that we just got to witness there. And that fleet beacon is coming in too as he starts to shield upgrade. So this is kind of what I was talking about. Has he been too slow trying to make this adjustment? And that Overseer is also scary because there's still a Nidus network.
Well, I think that definitely could have been a bit quicker, but in the end of the day, he had a fantastic hold earlier with Storm and Zealot, so it doesn't really matter. Well, and like Lurkers are very scary, but I'm much more worried about Vipers and Infestors. And obviously, if Lurkers show up in the main base, that becomes very problematic as well. But like SKillous is so heavy on the Void Rays at this point. He's got 15 Void Rays. The moment that Vipers and Infestors are out, he's in all sorts of trouble. That is a fantastic pickup by Denver. Picks up the Cybernetic score, pops a Nidus in the main as well. Oh my goodness, this is a really fun game.
Now, multi-prong Nidus harass. There's another worm tunneling into the natural expansion. The Void Rays want to come here to shut this down, but Hydralisks, they're not really afraid of Void Rays. And now Lurkers are going to come in here to help cement this position for Denver. If the Hydras were able to get rid of the Voids, this becomes almost game-ending levels of damage, but the rest of the Voids are now back. And they are going to be able to clear out that worm as some more drones were killed over at the 3rd base and the 4th. Actually, still at one Zealot fighting to his last breath. But do we have an
detection?
Observer? Oh my
SKillous,
god.
get some detection. What are we doing here, mate? Oh my goodness.
This whole ground army just got sacked for nothing. Okay. Needs that observer. That's all we can say. He needs the observer.
Where is it? He's got observers. He could recall it. There are actually, well, there's Hydras in the 4th base now as well. They're going to be able to pick up this Nexus. Denver is kind of pulling SKillous apart, even though he lost a couple of drones at home as well. Now he's going to snipe High Templar, sorry, observer, as the Void Rays clean up the main base, but Denver just picked up 4 High Templars that were maxed out on energy. What a massive pickoff. Very well done.
Yeah, that was a good grab. And now, like I was saying, the Void Rays they're not the unit that's going to carry your army in the late game, but that's all he has. He's got 10 Void Rays. 2 carriers are now starting up, but even that just doesn't feel like it's anywhere close to enough. Usually Protoss players try to get up to a 3rd Stargate during all of this, but I think that that's also a sign of the impact of the attack that Denver brought to him. He made it difficult for him to get that set up. And another great thing that you pointed out, Kev, was the cybernetic score getting destroyed means that not only is he limited in what he can actually build out of his gateways, but he can't get +2 air attack for the carriers, which is also extremely important late game.
Yep, definitely looking like this is Denver's game at this point, but it's still going to be very hard to close this one out. You know, there's still High Templars out, plenty of them. After he lost the previous one, he just rebuilt all of them. Obviously, it's very easy to overcommit on either the Lurkers, and then all of a sudden you don't have enough anti-air, or you have too much anti-air, but then the ground army is not powerful enough anymore. So Denver still needs to tread very carefully, but he's been making some great moves in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, we see here the Lurkers trying to cut off that position. The Void Rays, though, are going to get attacked by the Hydras during this, so trying to limit where the army's attention can be focused. The carriers have come out to play, but it's a whole lot of Hydras all the way down. Now, the Templar with that many storms, though, this army's starting to look a little bit more competitive now, Kev.
Yep, that was well done by SKillous. He kept the High Templars out of range of the Lurkers, and then kind of used his Void Rays to take care of the Lurkers. It looked a little bit clumsy at first because the Void Rays were like, we want to fight the Hydras. It's like, no, go back to the top, kill the Lurkers, and that is what happened in the end. So that definitely didn't go all that bad, but I'm sure that SKillous would just love some more times to get more powerful air upgrades. But hey, he's back to 4 bases. He's even getting a 5th during all of this. And the armies are pretty evenly matched at this point, I'd say.
Yeah, he's got 9 shield batteries at this 3rd, but unfortunately no cannon. So 1 Zealot with infinite hit points is going to try to kill 15 Lings. Meanwhile, the Hydras are trying to attack from 2 separate angles, kind of splitting up the attention of the Void Rays, splitting up the attention of those carriers, and the Templar need to get the Storms on top of the Hydras, but this is where it gets tricky. Now, the only thing that I actually do still really like about this specific fight is that Seismic Spines have not finished yet for Denver. So the Lurkers only have 8 range. They don't have that devastating 10 range that's going to make it very hard to land the Storms on them. So Denver has to pull back for a little bit. But I think with Vipers coming out, this only gets more and more difficult over time for SKillous.
Yeah, yes and no, though. Like, feedback did get buffed, right? So, you know, it becomes a dance at this point. I think it becomes just a competition of who can execute better. I think both players have the tools to win this game. It just truly comes down to who handles the fight better and who gets the better end of the exchange between the two spellcasters.
Yeah, you need to be kind of preempting almost with those Templar because you do not want them to get that quick yoink with the Vipers, and starting to wedge himself between these 2 bases on the low ground, kind of saying you have to go through this choke to be able to fight. Now the Interceptor count is starting to dwindle very quickly, but the Void Rays with the support of those Interceptors are able to shave off another good bit of the Zerg army supply. Great Storm is going to force the rest of those back. You'd really love an opportunity to dive on those Lurkers, but unfortunately SKillous is not going to get it. But both players going through wild amounts of bank, and I think you make a great point. All the tools are on the field for both players to succeed, especially since SKillous was able to secure that Southwest expansion.
Yep, +2 air weapons has finished up, so that is fantastic news for the Russian. You know what I don't really understand is why we never see a Dark Strand in games like this. It's such a cheap investment, and there have been multiple fights where there was no Overseer or there were no Spore Crawlers nearby. This is a very important little moment right now. Can we land the feedback, SKillous? He has an Observer on the left side. That Observer is so useful, Nate, because it actually keeps track of the Vipers.
Being able to see what angle the Vipers come in from is extremely important as you want to get those feedbacks off. The range of the 2 abilities, whether you're trying to grab one of those carriers or get the feedback, is pretty close too, but Southwest base gets cleaned up too, Kev.
I don't know what SKillous was looking at there, but there was a Parasitic Bomb landed on one of his Void Rays, and sometimes it's a bit hard to split up these Protoss units, but he just kept all of them stacked for the entire Parasitic Bomb, and then he lost 2 Void Rays, even above shield batteries, for absolutely no reason.
I guess that's how a Protoss player flexes. It's like, okay, I can take it! Hit me again! No, man, you're dying, sir. You should probably stop.
Give me more! It's like, well. And 2 Void Rays by the dust, but it did free up supply for more carriers. I definitely prefer carriers over Void Rays here, of course.
Yes.
Can we land the feedbacks? He knows that the Vipers are coming in from the left. Barely doesn't have vision. I'd like to see him put one more Observer in surveillance mode on top of his own ramp. So he can maybe keep better track of it. Don't let carriers get abducted. The Archon is not that important. It's all about the carriers.
Yeah, it's hard. The last thing that you want to have happen is your army be slowly pulled apart by those Vipers. That's why the Templar need to be forward, or you need to just dive onto the army, try to split against that Parasitic Bomb. But if you're pulling in and you're already there, this is just a great fake out, right? He moved in a way that the 3rd base seemed threatened. Army moves to protect it, and then boom, he just jumps right back up the ramp. Those Lurkers burrow very quickly to get into position, and even with the overcharged shield battery, it will not be enough to save the Nexus. 17 probes die, and we're not at the point where SKillous has the bank where he's like, okay, now I go Fist of Need with 40 probes and max out on carriers. No, he doesn't have the money. He hasn't been able to keep the economy flourishing in that way. There's been a lot of trades in this game. He's going to try to dive onto the army right now. Storms the right side of those Lurkers. And he has built up a pretty good carrier count. I won't lie. 12 carriers, 94 interceptors. One of them getting picked off there, though. That's exactly the thing you don't want to have happen if you're SKillous.
Nope. I feel like he should have just gone for that fight. I understand he was a bit worried about the Lurkers on the left side, but his carriers were way more powerful than those Hydras. Even if there is a Parasitic Bomb in the mix. Excuse me. I just felt that was his moment to kind of go for it. Even if you don't land Storms, you don't need Storms if your carriers beat the Hydras without Storms. Like, it's even better to kill them without Storm, because then you keep all your Interceptors alive. I felt that was a missed opportunity right there.
No, I completely agree. I 100% am vibing with what you're saying here, Kev. Oh, that one Lurker is going to be left behind there as the rest of the army gets pulled forward. But I think you have to, as a Protoss, try to seize that opportunity to jump on the army, because that's when Abduct will be least useful if you engage with everything at once, because there's no unit to isolate if you're in a big team fight. And there we see it. One carrier just gets snagged and not able to deflect that, not able to get the preemptive feedback to prevent that from going off. And that's, I mean, that's exactly what we've been talking about, man, is you have to be a little bit decisive. Although I can see that it's hard for SKillous because he's not really able to max out.
No, but he should really just go. Like, losing these carriers one by one, that's the most painful thing there is. There were 25 Hydras with, like, +1 armor against 10 carriers with +3. Let him abduct you and just fight, SKillous. Your army would absolutely demolish. Fighting near Spore Crawlers becomes a bit more difficult, but this is not the way. Okay, now he's actually just starting to lose this game because he's losing every carrier one by one. He should have just gone for it. He had multiple opportunities to force a fight. He's not getting the fight. Denver has done a tremendous job in shutting down the economy of SKillous, and I feel now SKillous is actually going to end up losing this game without fighting because his units are going to just get picked off one by one by one.
Yeah, it's it's like a spoon tearing style, right? He's like, all right, I'm just gonna take a little chunk out. Give me a carrier. All right, I'm gonna take another carrier. Your High Templar out of position for half a second. All right, I'm gonna take another carrier. And then you never actually get to have the fight. You never get to have a big fight. Some Zealots harassing on the west side is nice, but SKillous is down to basically no economy. He has 29 probes. He just has those original 3 bases, 2 of which are completely mined out. So is he going to be able to win this fight now with less carriers than he had before? We're going to have to see, because there's going to be a lot more Hydras than there were a minute ago.
Yep, because 23 drones just got killed as well, right? So that means less workers, way more army supply. Like, he could have taken a fight with 10 carriers with +3 against 25 Hydras. Right now, he's got 9 carriers, and he's about to face 54 Hydras. Like, yeah that's not the same fight at all.
I liked 12 versus 30 more than I like 9 versus 54. And here we go. We're going to see some memes possibly from this mothership. No, just going to get the carriers. Just click on them. Abduct. Boom, boom. There's so many Hydralisks. There are so many Hydralisks.
Couple great storms though, but yeah, with the Spore Crawlers helping out as well. And the biggest problem is the longer this goes on, the worse it gets for SKillous. Because A, he's nowhere near maxed out. B, he's got barely any income. C, he needs to rebuild interceptors after those tiny exchanges as well, which he doesn't have any money for. This is kind of a sad ending in a way to a very fun and awesome game 1, if you ask me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. We kind of got denied the climactic final fight as it just kind of turned into a very slow shaving down of this Protoss army. And I mean, if you're down right here with these Hydras, I guess you can't see the army because of the mothership. So that's just a bit painful.
This is where Elaser and Lambo would tell me the mothership is really good, and I'm like, no, I don't believe it.
And that's why it's worth 400.
SKillous is running out of time. Does Denver know about the base in the top, right? Yeah, he doesn't know about that. So that's nice. We can at least rebuild some interceptors, but it's still now 8 carriers against 57 Hydras. Like,
and the analysis is, oh, you got a ninja base. He can rebuild some interceptors. I'm like, that tells you most of what you need to know about how this game has gone. It's been a slow bleed out. We have 162 army supply for the Zerg at 25 drones, something that we do not ever see.
If all the Hydras clump up and we get like 3 or 4 of the best storms ever, like, I would say there is a 2% chance that SKillous wins this fight, but he needs the absolute sickest storms in the history of mankind. The first one is pretty good. The second one is all right. The problem is he cannot afford to lose those expensive carriers. He just lost another one, and I feel like this is going to continue.
I feel like you're giving me like all those random stats that they bring up in like the football games. We're like, all right, from this position, our AI calculates them out of about a 3.8% chance of victory here, and everyone's like, all right, cool, great, let's we're gonna back this one up. And that's unfortunately, like, SKillous has just avoided the big fight, and now the only thing that he can do, because of the way that this game went, is exactly what you were saying is the worst possible thing, which is fighting over the spores. There's not going to be anywhere left on the map that he can't actually cover with those anti-air. If there was one thing I was going to point out, is that I guess maybe some of his tech's going to bleed to death in the natural, but I don't think that Denver's really concerned with that anymore.
No, perhaps he should be, but yeah. He's just focusing on the main fight because he knows that SKillous is starting to run out of steam. I gotta say, it is a bit sloppy by Denver that he doesn't check the top right side, right? I feel like he's had a solid 3 or 4 minutes now to be like, let's make sure that he actually doesn't have a base. And he pretty much has vision of each and every single base, besides the one in the top right. So you may have gone for it. A couple of good feedbacks there. But once again, Denver can afford a couple of slip-ups here and there. Like, why we don't see a single Zergling running around, or even a Changeling or an Overseer check the top right, that is a little bit sloppy. I'm sure Denver is going to check it real soon. I don't think it really makes a difference, though, Ben.
Yeah. Here, I know he's expanding off of where the ninja base is.
Yeah.
As far as long cons go, I don't know. I guess theoretically, if he could just secretly mine out every base and get another 7 carriers, they can all be abducted one by one. But recalls to the top right to protect this, or is he going to try to just attack from here?
I think it was definitely to protect it at first, because if he loses that base, well, he loses all of the income, and since he's nowhere near maxed out, could potentially get a hatchery kill and maybe a couple of drones as well. That 2% chance just became a 2.7% chance, I think.
Oh my god.
The last time the Buffalo Bills turned a 27-0 deficit around was 1953. It's possible, Nathanius.
Now, if Denver was the Atlanta Falcons, then his chance of winning would be about a 33%.
Yes. All right. Now, if Denver keeps splitting up his army as well, I also think that is a tiny chance for SKillous, because I definitely like his chances a lot against, let's say, 25 Hydras or 27 Hydras. Like, he's not going to kill 53 Hydras and Spore Crawlers unless his army grows a bit more. But if he can only fight half of it, well, then there is a good chance. And Denver leaves his Vipers around. Like, I think he's going to pick up on this, but look at the Vipers, look at the Protoss army. Oh, SKillous to the left, everything you want in the box to the left. Oh my goodness. Fights one. Why is he afraid? That's the fight you want.
He's afraid of 5 Vipers in an open field, Ned. I don't have anything to say to that. Okay, well, gets all the lurkers. The Hydras are not here. 2 free lurkers. Very nice.
Oh,
Hydras
Hydras
show up
is
now.
bellied.
Is that... man. Wow, okay. If Denver loses this one, he's going to be hitting himself over the head real hard.
Yep. Denver is sending a Changeling right now to the right side of the map. He's like, am I crazy, or is that army getting bigger? Like, no, Denver, that army is getting bigger. There is a base here, but he still doesn't know about the top right. This is so bizarre. You rarely see it. Okay, he knows it now. Overlord comes in and he's like, whoa, for how long have you had this? And he clicks on the minerals. He's like, oh, you've had it for a while, didn't you? It's like, yes, indeed, Denver. It's a game now, Nate.
Everything I'm seeing here is just mind-boggling. He's gotten up. He's going back. He's going to be 12 carriers again. Yeah. And it's 43 Hydras this time, not 50 odd. We know Parasitic Bomb isn't the scariest thing for the carriers themselves. It's going to be more so the abduct and just kind of isolating those units. But if there's one thing that I still want to see, it's an improvement in that department, because there's been oh my god, no, the High Templar lurkers are trying to like run up and snipe them there. I was going to say, the biggest weakness of his play style this game has just been this. He keeps getting peeled. Every time that there's a potential for a big fight that he could maybe win, he instead says, I'm going to retreat and let you take 2 or 3 of my most expensive units on the way out.
Like, if he lands 2 good storms in that pack, I really just want to see him F2A move. Like, 2 good storms in the center of the Hydras, and this Protoss army could absolutely annihilate. Like, SKillous, you can fight like half of it. Like, I know lurkers are scary, but you should just close your eyes and it's like, it's okay if I lose all my Templars. I just want to fight. And is this the moment that SKillous goes for it? I think he should. Can he land a couple of storms? Well, he doesn't. But even without the storms, Nate, look at the amount of interceptors we've got on the field.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. Still 50+ interceptors on the field as the Hydralisk count has been cut in almost half. Now, one important thing to keep in mind. Okay, he's gonna grab the lurkers. I was gonna say that's very, very important. Don't just let those sit there if you can help it. I think a few of them are gonna squeeze possibly over. No, they're actually coming back. But yeah, I think he might have done it. Might have done it here, Kev. Well, just off of those ninja base economy, he might snowball this. And once he gets to kill the Hydralisk den, what's he gonna do?
Well, he's got to be careful because he's going to lose a lot of probes at home. He's going to lose pretty much all of his probes at home. How many Spore Crawlers? We still have 17 Spore Crawlers, though. The Vipers are going to do whatever they want. This game will actually come down to the wire. We did not get robbed after all, Nathanius. It just became more dramatic. We're going to get a proper end to it. SKillous' army is massive, but he's got no income anymore. There are still Vipers, but some good abducts. Only a single carrier goes down. But we still have 17 Spore Crawlers to worry about.
Yeah, At some point, does it turn into the carriers run out of interceptors and can't kill the spore crawlers? And it's a
Could this be a draw? Could it be a
nothing would surprise me from this game anymore, as it's been this for a game one of a best of 5, Kev. I don't think you could have asked for a more insane result. This is, I feel like SKillous has this. I feel like SKillous should have this one in the bag, just about.
Well, I mean, it's not going to be that easy. Denver is going to try to create a little Spore Crawler forest. There are 6 High Templars left, of which 5 are with the army. So actually, SKillous recalled. So he was like, I don't want to lose all my next side, because then I'm super all in and I could actually be ultra broke. He only has 13 probes, so hey, that's enough to at least saturate 1 mineral line. Denver is like, maybe I can take the base on the bottom side. I don't think SKillous ever had that. Oh, this is so wild.
Yeah, well, that is a lot of Hydralisks. So if the army is not in position, there's definitely some big opportunity here. Thankfully, he's not low on available supply cap, so that's not the biggest blow to him. But I guess if Denver is left unchecked with the Southwest, having those 2 fresh bases is going to be huge. Could eventually take SKillous's old purple gas base, and we're just going to be rotating counterclockwise around the map, apparently.
What I have to mention, by the way, is that during that little exchange we just had, SKillous did take out the hive. And that means that there are no more Vipers able to be produced by Denver unless he rebuilds a hive, but that takes a long time. Does not cancel the hatchery. Denver, there isn't that much happening. That's a big mistake, Nate. If you look at Denver's bank, he's not that rich. To lose 300 minerals like that is a very big deal.
Yeah, we have a Hydralisk hit squad being split up to try and take out both of the remaining expansions for SKillous. 1 Void Ray down. They're not really that strong against the Hydralisks, unfortunately. This is really important because those are all of the probes.
Feedback!
As he attacks the Southwest.
Okay, lands 2 very big feedbacks on the Viper, so that means no more Viper energy. I think this is just kind of going to do it. But 30 Hydras against 12 carriers, I don't know if that's enough. Even with some Spore Crawler support, I don't know if it's enough. But keep a close eye on the bank of SKillous. SKillous needs to be very careful, because he's got no money to rebuild the interceptors. This game is so close. Denver has 2k minerals, but I really think SKillous has done it.
Yeah, this is not one of those situations where I think Zerglings are going to be able to bail you out, barring some sort of insane attempt at a base trade or whatever you would try to do there. SKillous does have that actually blocked off. He's kind of cut the natural as much as he can. He's clogged it. And that Hydralisk and that finishes could give enough of a bump. But I think he can rebuild.
Oh.
He's going to get back up to 83 interceptors.
I feel like he should have
over
gone.
the spores. I don't know.
Yeah, but I feel like he should have gone before the Vipers had abduct energy again. I really think this is it. SKillous got 6 minerals. He loses a couple of interceptors there. I actually think this game could be a draw. SKillous should not fight near 17 spores. Oh my goodness, he's not going to win this fight, I think. Nathanius, what is happening?
A lot of interceptors are dying that cannot be replaced, down to just 64. And Roddy, you know, this is where I make my appeal again. In a beautiful cutscene in a game called StarCraft Brood War, Tassadar crashed his carrier into the Overmind, and if you have an empty carrier, you might as well just be able to turn it into a little nuke, because otherwise they're about to become dead supply once those interceptors are picked off.
Yep. Still 2 Vipers out, so Denver has been able to keep them alive, even though he doesn't have hive tech right now. SKillous had an observer, and he knows that Denver is going to try to mine off that base with the rich Vespian geyser. I do think that Denver should be able to win this. All he needs to do is spread creep and then eventually move the Spore Crawlers forward. And if he gets 1 fresh base up and running, this is his game. SKillous is going to do whatever he can to prevent that from happening. Can he land the feedback? Yes, he can. Doesn't get the kill, but just the feedback is a big deal already. Gets 2 drones as well, but Denver still has at least 2, if not 3 more attempts on securing a base with Spore Crawlers and then potentially winning the game. Because if Denver gets a new base up and running, he wins.
Yeah. I'm still just flabbergasted looking at this. So he was able to pull together. He's long distance mining the last few minerals at that third with his handful of probes. That's actually gotten him another like 15, 20 interceptors. He's up to 77. He's going to probably be able to hit up a little over I mean, this is all we can talk about now, right? This is it.
I was like looking at Denver long distance mineral mining. I was like, that's great for Denver because he can build more spore crawlers maybe down the line. And you're like, he can build more interceptors. I was like, damn it, he's right. Like they're both making great long distance mining plays. An abduct would be massive here. A storm would be massive. A feedback could be big as well. Are we gonna fight? Oh, that's a big deal. That is a very, very big deal.
That's the hard thing about with those feedbacks. You have to actually kind of catch them off guard because as soon as that tongue starts coming out to do the yoink, no matter how many feedbacks you want to hit that Viper with, it's already spent the energy. So yeah, that carrier was doomed tragically, and that's a really big loss of firepower for the army. But that's been the story of this game.
Too late.
Yep. Carriers getting picked off while you're swimming in shark-infested waters, but you're not expecting to be run into any great whites. Like, come on, man.
Did Denver just win the game with those 3 adapts or 3 abducts? He just killed 3 out of the 12 carriers that will obviously never be rebuilt. I feel like SKillous is playing for the draw, but you can only play for the draw if you don't lose any more units yourself. As long as those 2 Vipers are alive, I don't think he's gonna get the draw.
Yeah, it's just such an awkward situation because they're both long distance mining. But Denver can build a hatch. Yep. Like he has enough money to do that pretty easily. And if he could get the creep over there, I don't see any reason why he won't. He's just going to relocate all the spores at once. And maybe that's when SKillous would want to try to dive on him. But SKillous has just been he's been so indecisive about taking fights in this game alone that I just don't see him even looking for that opportunity, let alone capitalizing on it.
Oh, well.
There you go.
Even abducting a High Templar is obviously a great pickup for Denver. Oh, I feel like SKillous should have just sent it a couple of times. Just go for it, because like this, there is no happy ending to this story. Look at the amount of spore crawlers that Denver is moving towards his new base right now. This is all that Denver's plan was all along. He doesn't give a damn about that previous base. It's not important. What is important is securing a new base. SKillous has allowed that to happen right now. Yeah, maybe there's nothing he could have done, but there should have been a way to get rid of those Vipers. Just kill the army a couple of times. There was a moment to fight. I think SKillous now knows that he needs to fight. Whether he likes it or not, Nate, he needs to take this fight. What I think he should do, by the way, is shift-click the spore crawlers and just land storms on the Hydras. Here we go, Nathanius. This is it.
Yeah, there's just too many spore crawlers, though, right? How can you engage into this? He's going to spend his last couple of pennies rebuilding a handful of interceptors. And that's the hard part about fighting with this type of army as well, is that the Vipers can regenerate energy at least somewhat from the buildings. The Queens get energy. These are limitless resources over a long enough period of time, whereas the carriers aren't fighting with energy. They're fighting with money. So it's not like SKillous is building up a bank while they do this dance. He's just rebuilding his interceptors. So he can't really expand off of that. He can't move into anything else. Whereas Denver, he has a much more flexible setup because his army composition doesn't shoot money.
Oh, you cannot lose those.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well,
man, I even feel there right at the end, before he lost those 2 carriers, I felt there was a bit of hope. Like, yes, it's a lot of spore crawlers, but I think if you can get your interceptors out, just kill the spores, land all the storms on the Hydras, and just close your eyes and pray. But if we keep losing carriers like this, we're not going to win, SKillous.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think he can win now at all. I don't think there's any way 7 carriers will beat this army now. The Vipers have their energy back. Yeah, he's just going to come back and keep yoinking. Like, SKillous hasn't been willing to commit to a big fight, literally at any point in this game. And that is the reason why I don't think he's going to win. Even if this army could theoretically win, like if Fear Dragon's out there crunching the numbers, he's figured it out. I still don't think SKillous is going to take that fight anyway, even if there was an ideal fight to be taken.
He could have had over like 100 interceptors out. He should have just gone for it. Even if it's not pretty and you probably lose because you run out of interceptors, it's better than this. Because like this, you're always going to lose. GG gets called. Oh, SKillous. I wish that we could resume that game from replay literally 2 minutes ago, Nate. Well, 17 different moments, but 2 minutes ago, while he still had those 10 carriers, Denver is taking that base. It's now or never. Just take the fight. Try to kill the spores, because if you land big storms, the Hydras will run away. I'm not saying there's a happy ending to that fight, but it's better than this, because now there was no ending. I'm so unsatisfied. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. No, I feel like we all got blue balled on that one. Let's just go to game number 2. It's going to be on Death Aura. It's going to be on Death Aura. Another great map that should lend itself to a wonderful long PvZ. And, you know, I feel like SKillous has played really well in this tournament overall. And I really don't mean any disrespect to him. Just the way he was moving his army around, he just seems so terrified of the Zerg. Like he's already put in his head that I can't win a fight against a Zerg player, even though I'm maxed out with +3 carriers, Storm, Archons, 12 carriers and 6 Templar. If you put whatever with that, and you're going to be able to at least take a decent trade. But just, you know, there was a very, 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 it didn't, I don't want to say passive because he was out on the map, but certainly wasn't aggressive at all.
I think is the perfect word. Like,
yes, thank you.
He definitely wasn't decisive. There were that fight on the top right side where it's like, that's 25 Hydras. You've got 12 carriers and 6 High Templars. You may lose those High Templars, but you're gonna wipe out that entire Hydra army without any issues, and then maybe the carriers can keep pushing. It's like, no, and a little bit later, all of a sudden the Hydra count is doubled, and then we're fighting Spore Crawlers as well. Like, that fight becomes 7 times more difficult. There definitely were moments for SKillous to win that game. Now, of course, we have to be honest that if Denver doesn't leave that base on the top right side running for 12 minutes without scouting it, this would have probably ended 20 minutes ago, right?
Denver, we're getting into the lobby for game number 2. And the first thing Denver says, "What a game!" I'm like, yes. Yes.
It was a great game, though. Like, maybe the ending is a tiny bit unsatisfying, but if we focus on the first 15 to 20 minutes, that was awesome StarCraft, if you ask me. Very dynamic strategies, aggression. It felt that, like, is Denver overcommitting here? It's like, well, he's behind. But then he hit his transitions. He got a couple of great Nidus networks in the main base, Lurkers, Hydras, a lot of very fun fights. So I thought it was a fantastic game 1. Just an unsatisfying ending. Kind of like maybe Game of Thrones. That game was Game of Thrones, Nick. Started off good. It was promising. The end, maybe not what we had in mind, but still pretty good.
Yeah, the carriers were the Night King. We're like, oh, this will be awesome. No. just poked to death by little Viper knives, tragically. All right, well, we've got everybody set up in the lobby for game 2, so hopefully we can get you know, the satisfying finish for at least this second map. I mean, maybe if the series doesn't have the satisfying end, that's, you know, whatever. But if we can get at least one game where we get that big decisive fight, we get to see all the interceptors going crazy storms every which way, Zerg player just trying to pump out Hydras behind to reinforce. I would much rather see that than I would guess probably 15 carriers were killed alone just by abducting them throughout the course of that game without a fight ever happening, which is just, you know, that's a shame is what it is.
Denver wrote in the lobby, he's like, Roddy probably said, why is Denver making so many Hydras? And in my defense, Denver, that was a 39-minute game, and I did not say that. I said, probably SKillous just fight like 17 times, but I never questioned the amount of Hydras, because I kind of like the way that Denver played, other than the fact that he didn't scout the base on the top right. That was a bit silly. But, well, Nate, the TLDR, a very fun game 1. Let's get ready for more of that. In the top left side of Death Aura, we're looking at the main base of the Young Russian. He's down 0-1. It is SKillous.
And in the bottom right position, we have, leading the series 1-0 right now, the Blue Zerg player from Team Cap. He is Denver.
What a game. What a way to start this best of 5. After that TVP we just had where Hero Marine just did Hero Marine things, you know, and builds up an army, runs to the other side of the map, and he wins. It's like, okay. You know, we had a couple of nice ideas, cool strategies, but it didn't really work out. It's like, all right, you know, that's part of StarCraft. It's like second PvC, this could be good. And then we get a first game like that. It's like, well, wow.
Yeah. Well, if there was one thing that we were definitely right on with how topsy-turvy that first map was, it's that this is a close series. And, you know, if SKillous is just willing to slam his foot down on the pedal at least once in this game, I do think that if he can reach that type of army, it's very winnable. Just, you know, there's opportunities. I think the best point that you pointed out was when it was, what, 12 carriers against, it was like only 25 Hydras, right? Because
yes, and a 2 upgrade advantage. A 2 upgrade advantage as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have too much else to say about that. I think you kind of.
I would take that fight with 5 carriers, mate. For real, I'm like 5 carriers with +3 against 25 Hydras. Like, yeah, I'll take that. Land 1 storm, they move 1 time, you get the interceptors out. Like, +3 carriers are so good, especially if you're up 2 damn upgrades. Who cares about those lurkers? They don't shoot up.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the thing. When there was so much of the supply was in the lurkers, like that's really the best opportunity with the carriers. Because I think what you were saying as well is like at that point, it doesn't matter if the High Templar die because his ground army was just like 5 or 6 High Templars. So you could send him home or you could yeet him in and get a couple storms in.
Yeah.
But it's not like you're worried. It's not like you should be worried about the lurkers, you know? Just don't let, like if there's really anything to take away from that game, it's, you know, sometimes it's better to take a fight that you think you might lose than to let your opponent just shave away at you forever, because you're going to lose if that happens anyway.
Natanias, that is a very early vote mark. You gotta forgive me because I was kind of in awe of that previous game. When did Denver take his gas? Was it like 108, 109? Do you have any idea?
It was reasonably early. I mean, he timed it with that pull. I don't think he ever really pulled off of it because he just went straight into speed. I don't think it was like disgustingly early. I just think it was for like that lean speed and he just never pulled off.
All right, I'll go back into the replay to take a look at when that extractor is built, because most of the time when they want to do something very cheeky like a Roach Ling opening, they'll take that gas a bit quicker. And like most macro games, you see them take it at 110, 111. Now on paper, Nate, this is a terrible scenario for Denver, because if I know that I'm facing the build that SKillous is currently facing, there is 1 unit and 1 unit only that I want, and that's the Void Ray. I call it my precious at that point. SKillous doesn't know though, he's got no idea. He's going up to 3 bases 4 minutes into the game. He needs a shield battery and he needs a wall. Like, even if he loses this Nexus, that's not a big deal. What SKillous needs to do is to make sure that his natural does not get breached. If that adept dies and the floodgates are open, the Zerglings will kill all the probes, and he's got no idea. And the Oracle is somehow, some way, the Oracle's avoiding all the units in the center of the map.
Yeah, these are the types of things you really need to see, because that Oracle, we talk about the safety Oracle, we talk about the safety Void Ray, but the Void Ray on its own cannot kill all of this. And even if the Oracle was there, I'm not sure that would really change much. He's going to be able to get some of the drones and the natural here, but you know, we have to ask ourselves to cast the question, Kevin, at what cost?
Well, at the cost of the fact that he's about to lose 27 probes at home, probably. The Oracle does get recalled. I like that. Still a little bit of energy left as well. I mean, the floodgates are open. They're going to stay open for a while. If SKillous can survive this with like 20 probes, I still like his position, but that's going to be very difficult. He's doing whatever he can right now, running his probes around. Can we get one more Void Ray out? Yes, we can. Is there hope for SKillous?
Well, he's still 8 workers ahead, but those probes are all now outside the wall and exposed to the Zerglings as they continue to rip and tear them apart. And now it's starting to tilt very heavily in favor economically for Denver. I don't think you're going to be able to send these units across the map and just win, even if you could kill all of this. GG is called, and we have a 2-0 lead for the Zerg player.
That is insane, because technically this is a build order win for SKillous. If like he has an adept on the other side of the map, he didn't go all the way in, so he didn't know exactly what was happening. He opens up with a Void Ray, which is the dream unit against this build. Then he makes an Oracle, which is very useful as well. But the Oracle somehow takes the left bottom side of the map to scout what's happening at the bottom, misses the entire army, and yeah, then it's just too late, because the moment the natural is breached, the floodgates are open.
Yeah, and that's a tough one. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to a quick break. When we return, we will come back to see who's going to take this series between our 2 players. We'll see you in a moment. We are back once again here at the DreamHack Masters StarCraft 2. I'm Nathanius, joined by Rotterdam, as we currently have Denver sitting up 2-0 over SKillous. And Kev, despite a great result in the group stage for the Protoss player, he has been riding the struggle bus in this one.
Yeah, a very unlucky game too. I took a look at the gas timing. It was 109, and it's really funny how it works because, like, you know, normal gas, they take it to 111, 112. Those 2-3 seconds, more often than not, the Zerg player will all in. Like, I guarantee you that. Keep it in mind when you play your ladder games. That's a really unfortunate loss for SKillous, because I'm about to go as far to say that is a build order win if he just scouts it. If he just either sees the roaches when they pop, or he keeps the adept around just a little bit longer, he wins. You wall off your natural, you have a void ray, you have an oracle, you take 0 damage, you're up 17 workers, the Zerg has no tech, and you tied up the series. So that's really got a sting. Let's see if you can keep it together and give us a great game 3.
Let's see indeed. In the northwest position here on Lightshade, we have leading the series 2-0, the Blue Zerg player from Team Cap. He is Denver.
I can't help but to feel that this man should have been up 2-0 instead of down 2-0, but here we are. Can he turn things around? Hailing from Russia, it is SKillous.
All right, well, going across with that probe scout, and I guess I shouldn't be shocked if we see another Stargate opening out of SKillous. So I guess it depends. Does Denver want to be aggressive again? Is he going to try and do something greedy? He had that drone kind of parked outside the mineral line. I guess he's thinking about the possibility of cannons and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. It's funny as well because the Roach Lingolin, I think, is very good against Twilight openings, especially if they don't scout it, and it's just kind of a free win because the Protoss really doesn't have much. But it's terrible against Stargate, in my opinion, unless it somehow shows up as the natural of the Protoss and goes undetected up to that point. But yeah, that's like 1 out of 50 games I feel like that happens. The Void Ray could have scouted, the Adept could have scouted, it could have been a random probe scout, but above all, at least the Oracle should scout it. And just seeing that like 10 seconds in advance would make all the difference in the world, because then you can just go for a full wall off, put your Adept on the other side of the wall, and then the Roaches and Lings have to kill buildings first before they can get on top of the probes. And maybe they break through eventually, but I think then the best case scenario is you kill 10 to 15 probes, and that's not enough, because if SKillous holds that while being even in workers, he's already pretty damn far ahead, because you have Stargate tech out and you have multiple Stargate units out against a Zerg with no tech and no drones. But yeah, seeing it when it's literally killing your Adept is just you can't see it any later than that, Nate.
Yeah, that's always a rough one. So the Stargate's coming in as we were just so shocked to see that with the Overlord parked in front of the natural. I don't see how much this Adept can do if he tries to do anything with it. Check the third base, of course, which is under construction for Denver, still utilizing the high ground area here on Lightshade. But only 1 drone is mining that gas after the speed, so I don't feel like we're under the same risk of having a bunch of Lings and Roaches and Ravagers flood across the map like the last game. He's going to probably play this one a little bit more standard and just try to close it out, I guess. Try to get that cheeky 3-0 while SKillous builds his first Void Ray of what I assume will eventually be many.
Yeah, since this is a smaller map, there is a chance that SKillous goes just single Stargate this game and then actually goes into a stronger ground army, maybe followed up with Zealots and Archons and +1, or even try to hit a Resonating Glaive's timing attack. But also because this is a much smaller map, I wouldn't be surprised if Denver goes for a March of the Queens this game. I feel like a lot of those Queens attacks on this map are very powerful, they're quite popular, and makes sense to me because it's very easy to get your creep like halfway through the map. And if you then already have Queens there, well, then you just keep marching forward, keep spreading it. And I think those Roach Queen attacks are very powerful in Lightshade.
Yeah, so Lings are going to come up here and check the front again. Nothing to really see. Void Ray is actually going to miss an Overlord on the south side of the map, so it's going on a little bit of scouting cleanup duty, but not perhaps being precise enough with checking the edges of the map. Good place to hide your overlords, Zerg players, because not everybody's going to actually follow the very limits of the map with those units.
A 4-minute Roach Warren goes down and nothing but queens on the way so far. So if Denver does want to be aggressive, it would be the worst thing, but we're going to have a quick Dark Shrine instead. So that obviously would be excellent against a hatchery type based attack. But there's a good chance that Denver will still just tack up and fire up on there. Like, yeah,
I like seeing the DTs. I like it mixing it up. There's the Robo, so presumably DTs out of a Prism, right? And then into an Archon drop, or maybe just straight Archon drop. There's a couple different ways that you can try to do it. I don't think he's just going to YOLO send DTs straight into the enemy base. That's a bit risky considering there are spores everywhere. And grabs a probe on the way, being rallied to that third base. But this third base actually finishes up pretty early. So at the end of the day, assuming that SKillous is able to apply any pressure, I think he's in a pretty decent position economically, because this is a nice third timing to have.
Yep, definitely not a bad start, and not too much that Denver really could have done, since Denver didn't make too many units. Denver's just keeping tracks of everything. He's got spore crawlers in every base, so I don't think these DTs are going to be able to get a lot done on the other side of the map, but it's very nice to have DTs defensively, and that's kind of what I missed in Game 1 as well. I wanted to mention that a couple of times, but it felt that a Dark Shrine would have been very useful in that long game on the Romenta side. There were so many moments where it was just a couple of Hydras or just 1 or 2 Lurkers attacking the Protoss player. And if you then have warp in 1 or 2 DTs, even against Nidus networks as well, it's very annoying for a Zerg to know that like every single thing you do, you always need to have an Overlord or an Overseer with that army. That's something that a lot of Zerg players hate to deal with and forget about very quickly. So in long games like that, I think SKillous should always get a Dark Shrine.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, if I think there's been one thing that's been really fun to watch throughout all the DreamHack Masters seasons this year, it's been DT plays, whether it's epic saves or epic blinks. They've been probably one of the most fun units to watch, I think, in general.
Nate, that Spire didn't get scouted by the Hallucinated Phoenix, as our observer is showing us as well. Now, SKillous might be wondering, is like, where is your gas being spent? Like, I know you're mining gas, you're mining quite a bit of gas, but why don't I see any gas units? Did I just miss the Hydra then? These Dark Templars are going to get a very easy cancel on this hatchery, because I don't see an Overseer nearby. Obviously, no Spore Crawler to detect them, so not a bad start. But it is really important that SKillous starts catching wind of the fact there is a Spire on the map, because dealing with Mutas, if they show up in your main base, is also an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, well, that's like, you can just straight up lose the game in that situation if you're caught off guard by that. If you don't have blink, you don't have any stalkers out. The only real answer that's on the field is obviously there's a Stargate, but it takes time. And Phoenix, without any upgrades, they don't really bully the Mutalisks unless you get like 2 or 3 Stargates, and then you can build a lot of them. But building them one at a time won't save you either. So having Archons run around and chase when they're usually too dummy thick to go between the Protoss players' walls is also another problem.
I'm actually a bit worried about this War Prism. This War Prism is still on the other side of the map. The Mutas apparently did not see it. Now the ground army is going to move out, and it does have a couple of Archons on the ground. Like, SKillous' army is definitely stronger in a head-on engagement right now. But dealing with Muta harassment, once again, you see it this late, is going to be an absolute nightmare. SKillous is going to lose a lot of probes, and I have the feeling he doesn't even want to deal with it. He might just march to the other side of the map. But right when I say that, he actually does recall the Prism. I feel like this is going to be a very difficult game for the Russian. I almost wish he would have just closed his eyes and tried to end it, even though that'd be hard on creep against all these roaches. Now he's going to start falling pretty damn far behind in this game.
Yeah. Well, this all just kind of gets from hard to bad to worse. I think if he can secure the 4th base and kind of still drag this out, there's opportunity there, but that army for Denver is getting big, and it does look scary. There's not really a crazy amount of splash with this. The Immortals and Archons can do a lot to all of it, but there might just be too much. Even killing this 4th and backing off, like Denver could try to tech up behind this and just use Vipers or something against this lower tech level army that SKillous has been forced into.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to get into Hive right now when this is your army, so I think Denver is going to try to make magic happen. He has to make sure he doesn't walk into very big stasis traps. The first one is good, the second one is decent as well. I actually don't hate this for SKillous. He seems pretty bulletproof against the Mutas at this point. It's feels like, okay, we just have some scouting happening on the other side of the map. I don't want SKillous to go out too far, though. He's got a couple of static defenses. He should try to fall back to his static defenses, but I would say so far, so good for SKillous.
Yeah, I really like this. I was gonna say, I'm like, I was only talking about Hive Tech because I'm like, I don't actually know that he can break him here. Deny the fourth, sure, but that was a pretty good position that SKillous set himself up in, and I don't know that he's got everything he needs to go across the map and try to end this right now, but this might be his best position to do so without things kind of getting crazy on Denver's side. So we'll have to see what he can make happen. He could always try to lift up those Ravagers with the Phoenix, but he needs them to protect the Prism against those Mutas.
That was an expensive little adventure there for Denver as he tried to get the Four Prism, didn't get it, and now this very powerful, beefy Protoss army is showing up at the front door of Denver. All the roaches are so clumped up, which means the Archon shots are big, and I actually think SKillous is just about to win his first map here because I don't see a way for roaches and Zerglings to stop this Protoss army.
Yeah, the 3 Immortals still standing strong. The Prism now reinforcing as the Mutalisks have been cleared out, so you're going to have Zealots charging in with that +2. So Zerglings are going to be worthless against this, and even the Roaches aren't going to be tanky against the Zealots when you have an army like this. He's going about as deep as you possibly can into a Zerg base, but yeah, he's starting to kill enough drones that even if this was cleaned up, I don't think he's really sweating it anymore.
Yep, he went maybe a little too deep there and kind of spread himself very thin, which does allow Denver to sort of hold. Okay, the worst thing is that SKillous didn't actually kill the hatchery, Nate. So Denver is still a 4-base Zerg, which means it's relatively easy to rebuild the drones that he has lost. Yeah, maybe SKillous got a little bit too carried away there because he was kind of just losing units one by one. Even lost an Archon and a Zealot against Corrosive Ball. We do still have a couple of Phoenixes, and that Oracle has quite a bit of energy as well, so these Ravages are in trouble. I feel like if you're Denver right now, just take a chill pill and try to rebuild a strong economy and then try to get some better fights with Roaches and Ravages and maybe even Hydra's Lurkers down the line. But right now, running to the other side of the map is obviously not going to do it because now he's the one with no NTR.
Yeah, we have that Hydralisk Den that's halfway done. +3 attack coming in. I have liked SKillous' upgrades in this game. I feel like he's had a very strong setup for those gateway units. I love the way these Phoenix are following the Warp Prism. He says, okay, if you're, in case Mutas are built again, you know, the Spire is still on the table. That's not something that you want to risk getting shut down by. And also worth pointing out, Phoenix themselves, when you have this many of them, yes, you can just go harass the Phoenix. You don't really need to warp in anything else here.
I am a bit worried that SKillous is overproducing Phoenix right now. These are things I don't like to say, guys, but he doesn't really need to build Phoenixes anymore at this point, in my opinion. There's no reason for those Phoenixes. SKillous should try to get some splash damage or just a more powerful ground army. I think a second Robo and a Robo Bay would have been fantastic, given the situation that Denver doesn't really have the economy to go Hive, or just go for Storm, which would also be totally fine. I love Stargate, I love Mass Air, but I actually feel this is not the game for it.
Yeah, he's not going to have... He may not have time to get to that type of army with the aggressiveness that Denver's been showing. I don't know. Phoenix are able to see it, though. That's the nice advantage here, right? Sharks out, grabs a free Ravager. Anything on top of that is just gravy, too. So it's a big Hydra force. I don't know. Can he make it to the... I mean, it's not like he doesn't have a good ground army. Like, without Lurkers, I'm not sure how scary this is really supposed to be, but batteries aren't all done yet, and he doesn't have Storm.
Yeah, SKillous' army without Storm isn't actually that good against Hydras, right? Like, sure, if the Archons and Zealots can get on top of the Hydras, then it's fine. Fighting near batteries is obviously the best thing that SKillous could ever hope for, and I feel that Denver is getting a little too carried away here. He's still taking a decent trade near all these batteries, near an overcharged battery as well, and that just really goes to show you how much trouble SKillous would have been in if this fight wasn't near all those batteries.
Yeah, well, he does a great job of picking up this game. Number 3, GG SKillous gets on the board after a very, very tumultuous start to this best of 5. So very nicely done. Tries to force up the ramp, and I think one of the other things as well that's had a big impact on that is as he was going up that ramp, Kevin, the bottom side of his army was mostly just shooting the cybernetics core in the gateway. Like, he was shooting the wall to the natural, while the top half of the army was like, all right, now I'm going to fight your full army with half my supply. And then, you know, a stasis trap takes a few roaches out. and suddenly things snowball crazy hard. So that was just a good recognition on the defensive side by SKillous to hold on to that, but also the way that he counterattacked, you know, that can be a gutsy thing to do, but he had enough. He made it happen. And I think especially when you have that +2 upgrade advantage on the attack and there's no Carapace, and you're like, oh yeah, I've got Immortals and Zealots. We could kill anything with this.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised with how little the Mudas got done. Since SKillous actually saw them very late and he definitely wasn't ready at first, I felt that these Mudas would have been able to just completely wreak havoc in the main base, in the natural, but the natural was alright for Denver. He got like 13 probes there, but then he went into the third, and that was the only base that had static defenses at that point, a cannon and a battery. That's already a bit problematic for Mudas to deal with. Then obviously you've got reinforcements, you've got like, you know, a couple of stalkers being warped in, and all of a sudden, like, SKillous just kind of stabilized rather easily, despite the fact that he wasn't aware of those Mudas. And I don't know if that's because SKillous had great crisis management or if Denver just picked the wrong base to go to, because I think if he goes from the natural to the main, he gets way more damage done with those Mutas.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well. The Mutalisks had largely no impact on the game, right? Like they just didn't seem like a non-factor. It was a little bit of poking attempted, but at the end of the day, it didn't really accomplish much. And then you're like, okay, now I've got roaches, surprise. Oh, he's got 3 Archons and 3 Immortals with 10 charge lots that have +2 attack up a ramp. Like, what more can you really ask for in that situation, right?
Yeah, it was a really great hold by SKillous. At first, I was like, he's been investing quite a bit in static defenses, so maybe he should try to take the fight a bit near static defenses. But it was actually just a perfect position for his army, especially after a solid 20 supply or so was stuck in stasis traps. SKillous is like, no, I can take this fight. My army is better than his army. And he was spot on. So we're getting ready to hop into game 4, which is going to be played on Jagannatha. You know, the very first time, Nate, I saw this map, I woke up maybe a little bit later than I should have had. It's like noon or something. I was like, you know what? I'll watch one game on Lambo's stream before I start streaming myself. And I see that he's like practicing the new maps because this was still in the previous ladder map pool season. And I joined that game like 7-8 minutes in, and he's like, oh, I'm playing custom games with SKillous. I was like, cool. I'll watch one map. Lambo against SKillous, Jagannatha, 49-minute game. I'm like, oh my god. It's like by the time I was done watching that game, I was like, I don't feel like streaming right now. Like,
no, that's painful.
Yeah, eventually I still got there. But that's the very first time I saw this map, and I was like, cool. And I had no idea what I was watching because I was like, why are they fighting here? And why do they have these bases here? I was like, where did SKillous even spawn? Because so many fights took place on the top left side. I'm like, it's always the first time you watch a brand new StarCraft map, you're like, what am I watching? And then a week later, it just feels like the most normal thing in the world.
Yeah. And that's like the cool thing, right? I love when we get to see these things pop up. I think someone, I don't know if it was Fear Dragon, was talking about when people started to do the Evo chamber block when like Hellions or Devs were getting into mineral lines, and then within a week of that happening at a high level, everybody else is jumping on it. Yeah. Like these armory builds, especially, like they've really blown up since you know, the end of the GSL season. Everybody's doing them now when the Terran players are out there, of course. But we've got a PVZ here, and we need to find out who's going to win it. Is this guy going to bring it back, Roddy? The red Protoss in the northeast, down 1-2. He is SKillous.
And in the bottom left side, we're looking at the main base of the Frenchman representing Team Coca. It is Denver. To clarify, Denver is temporarily represented by Coca, but he's kind of a free agent, so he's just part of this little team. It's kind of like a personal sponsorship until there is another esports organization that would like to sign Denver. So if you're watching and you want to own a Denver too, well, just talk to Coca.
Yeah, that's, you know, you need to like get the commercial music playing. It's like, there's a Denver out there waiting for you. For just 5 Prime subs a month, hey, you too can help support this young pro gamer.
Yeah, I mean,
he's pretty good too, so.
That's a very nice guy. Very nice. He's a little whiny sometimes, but you know, that's what all children have.
All? Yeah.
All babies cry, guys. No, I'm kidding. Denver, I love you.
Well, he might walk away with the last laugh here because he's played a hell of a series. I don't mind going for an attack like that when you're up 2-0, right? It's one of those things that we talk about and we give a lot of credit to when a player says, all right, I'm going to confidently just try to close it out because, you know, I still have 2 more maps that I could potentially play to try to win the series. And if you believe that you're better than your opponent, then you probably think to yourself, all right, I'll do something that's going to be more decisive and fall back on my regular talents and abilities if that doesn't get the job done after. So Stargate boots up. No surprise there out of SKillous. Probably going to be a Void Ray or an Oracle into a Void Ray. And I guess Denver's really been the one that's been mixing it up probably more than anything. Although, you know, SKillous very smartly going into the Immortals quickly in that last map.
Yep. I do think that this is the kind of map where it's a bit more likely SKillous does go back to what we saw in game 1. And that's him heading towards a mass air composition. Even though he lost game 1, I think we already went over it a couple of times. There were definitely opportunities to have a potentially different outcome of that first game. So I don't think the strategy or the unit choice is really what costed SKillous in game 1.
Yeah. So it's Oracle to start. And that is, I don't hate it. If, you know, you can get there before the Spore Crawlers are up, that's always going to be nice. Adept gets the Creep Tumor kill on the way out, which is also nice too. Delay a little bit of that spread. Slow down the Zerg. Gigantha is a long map. You got to get across. There's a lot of side alleyways to check with those Creep Tumors if you want to cover all of it. Like 4 creep lanes.
What's nice as well is that if you open up Void Ray like 3-4 games in a row, and then all of a sudden you open up Oracle, there is a chance that Zerg players get a little bit greedy and they're like, let's just build those Spore Crawlers a bit later than we did in those previous games. He always goes for the safety Void anyway. We know that's not the case, but we can also see at the production tab that Denver is not really skipping any beats and he's making sure that his Spore Crawlers are on time. And I don't think this first Oracle will really get anything done. SKillous, please pay attention, and he does. I think we're just getting ready for a nice macro game, Nathanius.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Maybe we'll get to see another 12 carriers fight against 50 Hydralisks for 40 minutes. Who knows? Oracle's going to zip back around towards the main, but Denver, he's got the Queen a little bit out, so should be able to easily push that away. Revelation is not going to say much other than, hey, I am mining Vespine gas. Not the biggest shocker in the world, but perhaps it might be with that Roachhorn that's building Kev.
Yeah, it's early.
Have,
Queenitis? Maybe Queenitis? I don't know. Huh?
Yeah, a little cheeky Roach Queenitis. Don't mind it. Hit before they get the Immortal count up, perhaps, or inside
maybe
the main,
at best maybe one Immortal. But right when we say that, there is an Evolution Chamber going down as well. Maybe Denver is just playing it safe. SKillous is a pretty tricky player, even though he plays a lot of very long, drawn-out macro games. SKillous is also perfectly capable of making it look like it's going to be a macro game. And then all of a sudden, there was a Twilight Council in the main base with 8 gateways finishing up, and he hits you with a devastating timing. So maybe Denver just wants to play it safe, and that kind of seems to be the case.
Yeah, I think that is somewhat reasonable. Doesn't want things to tilt out of control just because he lost that last map either. You know, he's got to recognize that he needs to still play smart and manage this series as best he can. +1 a ranged attack and Roach speed start. I've got my eyes glued to that production tab trying to see if he's going to actually make that Nidus network we were kind of hypothesizing about earlier. But with the revelation on the lair, I feel like if you're a Protoss player and you see that, you're like, maybe it's time to have pylon vision in my main base and just not get caught off guard by something like that.
This is actually perfect for Denver, because I think like the Roach Queen Nidus attacks are very good against mass air, but they're not necessarily that good against somebody with a quick robo and a strong defensive setup. Instead, Denver is gonna go for what seems to be Nidus Swarm Host. Well, no Nidus yet, but at least Roach Swarm Host, and maybe we'll see a Nidus network down the line. And that is again, I think very good against the Immortal army that SKillous is currently producing. So I kind of like where this is going from a strategic point of view for Denver. But obviously, it all comes down to the execution.
I'm not sure that I've seen many Protoss. I don't think in any of the games that I've cast where Zerg's done this build against Protoss, it's failed. So It's definitely
really?
a very powerful push. At least the games that I've cast. I'm not saying it never loses. I'm just saying it's a strong build. With regard to shoving with like the Roach or Ravager, and then use the Locust to kind of buffer for the corrosive biles. It's a really good way to wear a player down. I remember, I think Showtime lost to this one last week, and that it was a brutal game to watch, just trying to hang on there. But it's so hard to keep the Archons and the Immortals alive if that's what you're using to hold it, because if the Zerg player does this right, you're not going to kill the Swarm host. They're going to use Queens as well to buffer anti-air wise. And okay, well,
I love the
maybe play
first
a little more
Nidus.
range.
I love
Beautiful.
the first Nidus because it's not that obvious. That's not really where you're checking. I like where SKillous has his Void Ray because that is what I would be very worried about as well. But I think this is just a very smart position on the very first Nidus network for Denver. There are a couple of extra shield batteries finishing up, but that's still a crap ton of Swarmos already. The Oracles activate Pulsar Beam. They're not going to be able to prevent these Swarmos from getting home. Let's see what the first wave of Locusts can get done. A couple sentries, a couple probes, maybe a shield battery.
Yeah, doesn't get... honestly, it was kind of not the worst amount of losses to that first one as he cleans the warm-up. If he can prevent a second wave from coming in, I think that's going to allow him to somewhat stabilize here. But at the end of the day, the Zealot counter harass, I think, is the real story here, because this is exactly the last thing you want to deal with when you're trying to siege an opponent, right? You want to be out there. You want to have everybody up on the field right outside the opponent's base, doing damage. But oh my god, I can't believe that Void Ray did not.
Oh my god, if that Void Ray would have cancelled it, that would have been so big. Now I think it's too late. I think Queens will pop out as well because there are so many Queens. Instead, we're just going to get another swipe. This is it, man. I really feel that Denver is very all in with this attack. He needs a fantastic fight here with the Locust. He's just going to send him into the Natural at first. The Natural is very exposed. There are no shield batteries there, so that Nexus goes down. A lot of probes are going to fall, but his Swarmos are in a bit of trouble as well.
Yeah, losing that worm was definitely rough, not having the Queens available to come out and transfuse. So getting any kills on the Swarm host, I think, is got to be one of the most important parts of this. And just to say, he also has kept a wild amount of Archons and Immortals alive. And I think with this Prism has bought himself and created so much space. We might see SKillous force this one to a game number 5, barring something wild out of Denver, because he has been plowing through these Locusts without too much trouble. Not to say that Denver doesn't still have a big army, because obviously with Swarm hosts, it's easy to stay maxed out.
Yeah, I'm still very worried. Like 4 Immortals is good. It's 5 Immortals even. I think Denver made a big slip up in the Natural. When he killed the Nexus, he still had a couple of seconds left on all the Locusts. He really should have killed the Robo. That should have been his #1 priority. Instead, he killed like a couple of random pilots. Kills the Void Ray with Corrosive Bile. Well done there. Force fields are good. Next wave of Locust. I actually don't like this from Denver. Why are we locusting the base with 7 shield batteries when there is nothing in the main and nothing in the Natural?
Good question, Kev. Good question. He's going to split off some Roaches to run inside of the main base, while the other Roaches and Ravagers are kind of trying to do this weird trade-out battle, I guess, which is stall the Immortal Archon. But if there's one army composition that is not scared of Roaches, it's Immortal Archon, as the Zealots slice down the Nidus and another one of Denver's outside bases.
All right, a couple of Archons are very low on HP already. The Swarmos are back. The next wave of Locust is big. Immortal Corrosive Bile connects again. I gotta say, Denver has done a phenomenal job with these Ravagers. Killed an Archon, killed the Observer, killed an Immortal, all while just kiting away from the army. Now, fighting near those batteries, that's still as pointless as it was before. Denver should prioritize the Natural and the main base. You should really stop trying to do something at the third or get jebaited by fighting into the third.
Yeah, I'm trying to smite down the Cybernetics core, limit a little bit of tech, I guess. Not that that's been what he's been relying on, but it'll stop sentries from coming out. Good force field, peels off a number of the Ravagers. Zealots are still being warped into the main base. That's Prism is going to get an MVP award if SKillous takes this game, because I do believe that this is going to be one of the biggest factors in his success, because it's just been gnarly. And Denver, kind of recognizing his low eco, I guess, he's going to build 5 more Swarm hosts, because they're going to be the most cost-effective things he can build right now.
Absolutely spot on, Nate, with the Prism. 20 drones went down, a couple of roaches went down, and 4 queens went down as well. So Dangerous is more and more all in with each and every attack. And I bet he really regrets not killing that Robo when he had the chance, because that Robo has produced a couple of very annoying things. Way more Immortals came out. This is going to be difficult. Like, Denver needs a game-ending fight. He knows it. He's on the clock. Great force fields by SKillous. Catches so many of these roaches way before the Locusts and the Swarmos are even here. Another Ravager goes down. Wow, SKillous just got so much value out of his sentries.
Yeah, and once again, even in the bottom right, you try to get another hatchery. That's being hit by Zealots. Oracles are working away on some of the Swarm hosts. The Locust waves are still going to be the hardest thing to deal with. He needs to make sure he doesn't lose too many of the Roaches and Ravagers. But I'm also looking at that flashing red on the mini-map, Robbie. There's a lot of Zealots inside of Denver's base still hacking and whacking and smacking.
There are Zealots everywhere. The 4th base of Denver went down to the Zealots. The main base is in a lot of trouble. The Natural is being sieged by these Zealots as well. This War Prism is indeed the absolute MVP Prism. And Nidus now goes up in the main base, but SKillous does have vision of that. He's going to wipe in a couple of Zealots and take care of that. I actually think that the Russian has done it indeed, and he is going to send us to Game 5. And wow, I find that very impressive, because this game was pretty damn difficult at one point.
Yeah, it's just so hard. I love. You pointed this out a few times, Kev, but the shield batteries of that third came in such clutch, especially that Denver kept sending the Locust over there. And I'm watching, a Super Saiyan Archon soak 5,000 damage because, he's got 8 shield batteries around him and he can just Kamehameha blast all of them down. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, Swarm hosts aren't as hard to deal with as apparently we thought. But it's obviously also just been really great play out of SKillous. Important to keep in mind, recall's not that big, but when you're going up these ramps, I always get a little bit nervous as far as biles go.
Yeah, but I mean, the ground army of Denver is really not that impressive anymore. Tries to kill the Oracles, doesn't get it. Locusts are going to go for the Nexus one more time, and this amount of Locusts should be able to get the job done, even though there is an overcharge battery. This time the Nexus does finally fall. There were no units. But then SKillous is like, all right, if all of your Swarmos are on the other side of the map, well, let's dance then. Let's fight. Your army versus my army. Let's go. And this Protoss army is so much more powerful than these Roaches and Ravages of Denver.
Yeah, there's no way that Denver's army back here could deal with this. I think even if he did try to bring the Swarm host home, if he could, I don't believe that they would suddenly be able to turn the tide for him. It's just the Immortal backbone with this many sentries, the Archon support, having a Prism. He's still warping in. He's still adding to this army. He's snowballing it inside of Denver's base, who can only build Roaches and Ravagers.
Yep.
And that's, yeah.
I'm actually shocked he didn't bring the Swarmos back, though. I'm with you. I don't think that really would have made the difference. Another Observer goes down to Karasabal, but having the Swarmos on the other side of the map means you're literally going to lose everything here without standing a chance. With the Locust, I would say there's a tiny chance if you get an absolutely perfect engagement, a sandwich. Now Denver just lost all the Roaches, all the Ravages, and he is forced to tap out. GG. SKillous with some phenomenal defense in Game 4 and great usage of the sentries as well is gonna send us to Game 5. Nate, we may be clueless, you, me, and Wadi. We all predicted this was gonna be close. It's pretty damn close.
Yeah. And we're gonna get to the conclusion of this, guys. One more break before game number 5. We'll see you in just a few here at the DreamHack Masters. What started off with perhaps the most passive-aggressive late game PvZ we've ever seen has now come to a Game 5, ladies and gentlemen, here at the DreamHack Masters. I'm Nathanius, joined by Rotterdam, and we can definitely say that SKillous has gotten a little bit better at taking and engaging in those fights, Kev.
Yeah, the fact that he won Game 4, I think, is very impressive. I really thought he was going to be in a bit of trouble. At one point, he was down 70 a supply or something. And I know that happens pretty often because it's easy to max out on Roach Swarm most nighters. But I felt like when the natural went down, I was like, oh man, I think now he's in trouble. But I think then slipped up. He took a few too many fights near those batteries. He was a bit too eager to do damage in the third, while the natural was wide open. He could have killed that Robo, he didn't. But it's been a very dramatic and fun best of 5 so far. So I think the real winners are us. But we, of course, need to figure out who is going to make it into the top 8 of the DreamHack StarCraft 2 Masters Winter. Bottom left side, he has tied things up. Hailing from Russia, it is SKillous.
Очень хорошо, as they might say. In the northeast, we have the blue Zerg player. He is Denver.
How's your Russian these days, Nate?
Oh, it's a lot worse than when I was a kid, I'll say that. But I still remember, the important things. Morozhenie, that's ice cream, very important. Привет, как дела, спасибо, я извиняюсь, all that jazz. There's a lot of,
I'm starting to feel a little attracted to you right now, Nathan.
The less commonly known parts of the Nathanius origin story was spending half my childhood in Brooklyn, in Little Russia. So that's, you pick up some things. I've forgotten more than I've ever learned, though.
Nate, we got to talk about this. SKillous is faking the cannon rush. Sorry, I know I asked you a question.
So dirty.
Yeah.
So dirty, Kevin.
I asked you a question and I'm like, oh, we're going to talk about this. But this is nice, man. SKillous getting the little mental advantage here in Game 5. Every now and then these Eastern European Protoss, they do love their cannons. Denver took that very serious. Pulled a lot of drones. You can see that in the income grab as well. Lost quite a bit of potential income. And SKillous is like, haha, just kidding. And this is not like game-ending damage, of course. But A, it does suck for Denver because his build order is a bit thrown off. And B, it's a little bit of a feel-good moment as well if you're SKillous. You're like, was faking it. He fell for it. 1-0 for me.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, every time that SKillous has sent that probe scout over in this whole series, I think Denver has moved at least one drone down, right? He's always been putting a drone to kind of block where a pylon might go or a wall off might go. He's obviously been thinking about it. And I like that SKillous kind of just threatens him. He says, it's finally happening. And he's like, all men overboard. But it was halluce.
Well, Denver has been traumatized, man. Hellraiser did him dirty a long time ago in Challenger. He made a tweet about it, and since that day, this man cannot close his eyes at night before seeing a cannon flash in front of his eyes. So he takes these things very seriously.
I can't argue with that. Having seen what Protoss players do to Zergs with cannons and then batteries and robos, I can say that I would not want to live that nightmare.
And then I think it also comes into play that SKillous is obviously very good friends with Hellraiser. They share a lot of ideas, and Denver knows that. Like all these pro gamers, they don't just know their opponents, know what they're good at, but they also know who they are close with. And, pretty much everyone is getting along in the top European scene. So it's not like there's enemies, but obviously you're closer to some players than others. And SKillous and Hellraiser are very good friends. And Denver knows this as well, so he's probably like, I'm sure Hellraiser told him to cannon rush me, so I'm going to take this very serious.
I think he's done a pretty good job of being flexible in this series. The first 2 games definitely had me feeling down, but man, this one really shook up to be a good, engaging, dynamic series. Just, I respect and appreciate that SKillous didn't play this super stubborn, trying to force this, late game carrier, Templar, whatever. He's made good adjustments. He's made some good calls, and he's responded very well to the aggression that Denver's thrown at him the last 2 games too.
Well, speaking of aggression, once again, a early Roach Warren could just be safety. It's not like super early, it's on 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, but it's a bit earlier than I normally see it at this level. But it seems that Denver just really wants to make sure, A, he doesn't forget it, and B, in case SKillous does cut a couple corners and all of a sudden hit him with a gateway attack, that he will have access to those roaches immediately. We know that he doesn't have anything to worry about. What we do know is that the Zerglings at the bottom side are actually very successful. They find the Adept. This reminds me a little bit of game 1. I actually think the Lynx can win this fight still. 2 Adepts without a shield battery, without Oracle support. Wow, what a great little start here for Denver.
Yeah, getting a probe there would have been a little icing on the cake, but he actually delayed that Roach Warren a little bit after he started it. He wanted to get the lair up fast, so the Roach Warren is on the way again now. But yeah, he canceled that. So it's only halfway done at the moment. I guess he realized, he's like, okay, I don't actually want to build them early. I'd rather, makes sense to time it with the lair, right? Get Roach speed, because that's going to be a very important upgrade. Otherwise, like if the Void Ray sees slow roaches, you pop a bottle because you're having a good time there.
I do find that funny though when they do that, because like, okay, you cancel the Roach Warren, you lose resources, your drone makes like 4 trips to the mineral patches, you're like, never mind, I'm gonna build the Roach Warren again. Like, I don't know if that was just, maybe he's a bit indecisive, but I don't even think that's really plus EV, to be honest, because like, how many trips can the drone really make to the mineral patch and back before it pays for the missing resources? Like at best, I feel like you're gonna get 5 or 10 minerals out of that, and I think I would rather spend my resources elsewhere.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, the only thing that Roach cancellation did was give us something to talk about for the last 45 seconds, because at the end of the day, don't really think it ended up doing too much for him. A couple of somethings got into the third base mineral line while the Oracles poked the main, so it's like 3 drones killed, but nothing to write home about just yet. Now the Ling, the +1 melee on the Lings kind of makes me feel like we're going to get into some of more traditional ZVP setup with maybe some Ling Bane Hydra or something like that, where he wants to have those +2 Banelings just blow everything up. I'll have to see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be mostly Roaches, Ravages, Lings, and Banes. I don't know if Denver really wants to get Hydras, because Hydras and Banes together, it gets a little bit expensive, and a lot of Zergs just kind of stop believing in that. But Ling, Bane, Roach, Ravager is still very good. You can always maybe way down the line squeeze in the Spire, but we could see some Overlord drops, even though there's a Void Ram Patrol. But this is going to be an explosive game one way or the other, Nate, because with the composition that Denver is working with, he needs to fight. He knows that if he just sits at home and lets SKillous max out, well, it's going to be very bad news, because then SKillous' army is going to be way better than his army. So we are in for a very action-packed upcoming 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, that +1 attack and charge finishing as well is going to give a little bit of firepower. SKillous getting on the aggressive, warping in those Templar to get an Archon and try to make a big attack. But, I mean, he's going to be walking into quite a force from the Zerg player.
I'm a bit worried here for Denver, because he was just building a million Overlords at once. I mean, it's nice not to be supply blocked, but right now SKillous' army is actually quite powerful. But maybe SKillous is like, well, wait a minute, you've got a lot of Roaches and Ravagers. I don't want to attack into that. I actually think if they would have fought 10 seconds ago, that would have been a great fight for SKillous. But SKillous is like, hold on, I don't need to fight. If you're building that many units, that means you're going to attack me. So instead of fighting on creep, why don't we fight off creep and in range of a couple of shield batteries?
Can't argue with that logic. I think another important thing to keep in mind here too is this Void Ray is going to try to clear out the Overlords that are spotting outside of Denver's base. I do like the way this is used. I got to go back to the last game, Kev. The Warp Prism was absolutely disgusting. It was filthy. That Warp Prism damn near single-handedly won in the game on the back of the defense, because you can hold off against Swarm Host, but it's very hard to deal damage back because you feel like you kind of get boxed in. You can't really leave your own base that easily. Zerg's got creep spread outside your base because of the Nidus and all that. But when you can do with a Prism what SKillous did to Denver last game, anything is possible. So I'm just, I'm keeping my eyes on that, because whatever Denver wants to do, he needs to be a little bit more sharp on his defense of that drop attack if he wants to win this game.
Well, we have a couple of Roaches trying to get a cancel on this Nexus in the bottom right, but they won't succeed in doing so. Now, Denver was 200 out of 200 supply, but he still had 3 more Overlords in production. He fired those up before, which makes me wonder, is he going to try to go for some Baneling drops? I almost feel like it's a waste not to try. If you have +2 melee, you have Banelings, I feel like you want to try. I know there's a Void Ray, and I know that SKillous might be looking for it, but it's still so powerful, and it only has to work once to kill 20 probes.
Very, very true. This is the reason why everybody hates them +2 Banelings. The stasis trap grabs a few units, kind of creates a choke there. You've got 5 Stalkers in the wall, though, so just a few Banelings won't get through it. Now, the third base mineral line. These Banelings are going to try to make their way into it. +2 tech's not done yet, but with this many Banelings, it's not really necessary. 10 probe kills. Nothing to scoff at.
No, not bad, but also not fantastic, right? Let's see how much SKillous can get on the other side of the map. We've got Zealots attacking the head in the top left, and of course we have the Water Prism in the main base once again. It seems like the Oracles are even going to try to assist these Zealots a little bit. SKillous should really kill that Spore Crawler. He had the chance to kill that Spore Crawler. He didn't do it. That would have been so nice for these Oracles. But that Protoss army, Nate, SKillous is feeling very confident, going super deep on creep. I find it a bit adventurous, but if he can keep the High Templars alive, it could work out.
Yeah, I just need to make sure that the force fields and the storms are well placed. Of course, the energy on the sentries is running out. Another Zealot reinforcement wave comes in. The Prism is also going to be able to help to keep this attack rolling along. And speaking of rolling, here come the Banelings now making their way towards that. But the Storms and the Archon take up damn near every single one of those Banelings.
Yep, these fights have been fantastic so far for SKillous. He does need a few more units because now the Immortals feel a little bit exposed. But it seems like SKillous doesn't give a damn. Maybe he should have given a damn, though.
Maybe you should have given a okay. Somehow the Prism doesn't die on that one, and the Zealot Warpin does just barely get in the nick of time onto these Ravagers. There's only 5 of them. And I guess with this many Zealots, he's just going to try and flood and overwhelm this force.
It's close. There is still a little bit of micro potential. There's a lot of extra roaches on the way, but Denver needs those roaches to be here, right now. It seems like they will show up a little bit too late, and now a lot of the Ravages went down, and that is very painful because Denver does not have the economy to rebuild those expensive Ravages.
No, he does not. And in this situation with the fight inside the mineral line, even the Archon's going to splash off the Ravagers on the drones, and GG Skill